a son. He was devoured by earth. There was a God. They call him the Father. And there was a means to make a valley with grace out of this hole that I've dug for me.
Welcome to the Valley of Grace podcast, helping women reclaim their power and identity so they will know they are enough. And today I have Ashley Cutler, and we are going to dive right into part 2 of our interview of the Black woman experience, talking through our stories. And before we continue on with our conversation, I just want to get a shout out to Timothy Horton for bringing the intro and outro music every week. And without further ado, we're going to continue with the conversation with coach and mental health therapist, Ashley Cutler. All righty. Welcome back to the show, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're very welcome. Okay, so my question that we're starting off with today is, in your opinion, why do Black women feel the need to pressure other Black women into having their hair straightened, skin lightened, or their language changed in order to sound proper enough?
Yeah, I definitely think it's an aspect of acceptance, or, let me blend in with what, is popular or expected. So straighter hair, tends to be in other cultures, and predominantly what the standard of beauty is having long hair and having straight hair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, we're socialized in the same American society that everyone else is socialized, straightening comb.
Right.
Or, I used to think that it's cool to straighten my hair. And even now with being natural, there's a lot of people that say, oh my gosh, I love your hair. You have such nice hair. And when you hear stuff like that, it really reaffirms you of what you've been hearing your whole life, is that you don't have good hair.
Right. It's the good hair and the bad hair.
That
right?
It's not nice.
Right.
So when you hear the opposite, you're like, oh, okay.
Right.
Nice hair. Just
right. Nice hair. Right.
That, I always thought about it. And you see a lot of women transitioning into natural, but then you still also have this pushback.
Yes.
Keeping your hair straightened,
Mm-hmm.
with people not being able to wear dreadlocks and stuff in certain settings, and hair being controversy in the news.
Mm-hmm.
Types of things, or not being able to wear braids and things like that.
Right.
So there's still definitely that pushback that's there.
Mm-hmm.
And now of if I have my hair in a certain way, that somebody might say that, oh, you need to do something with that. What's going on with your hair?
Right.
Questions, oh, you're snappy. You need to,
Mm-hmm.
you need to do something about that. And it's like, why can't I just let it be?
Right. Why can't I let it be the way I want it to be?
Why does it have to always be
mm-hmm.
a particular way of, like, contained almost?
Right. Like you said, like contained. And I feel like when people say that, they have their own issues of not enoughness to work out. You understand what I'm saying? Because if you feel secure in what you have and you good, but then they come along, well, why don't you straighten your hair or put a wig on? It's like, that's, your issue of not enoughness, but it starts bleeding out. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a notion of not enough, or, like I said, that label of bad.
Yes, bad.
It could even be, say if you have your hair in a natural style, and nobody might not say nothing, but you straighten your hair because you want to get it trimmed or cut or something.
Right.
And Oh, your hair looks so nice, oh, your hair is so long, I didn't know it was
Mm-hmm.
long. And
Right.
you
It's so
kind of
long and so
like
this and so that. Right.
you
But no
reaffirming
comments. Yes.
messages, and those things are reinforcement. When
Right.
we hear nice things, it's positive
Mm-hmm.
reinforcement, and then when we hear some negative things, it's negative reinforcement of, okay, well, that didn't get a good response, so
Right.
maybe we shouldn't do that again. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, even if we say these things don't bother us, they do.
They do. They
They
do.
have an impact on us
They
regardless
do. They
of
do. They
how
leave an impact. Yep.
we're, yeah,
Yep.
thinking
Oh
of
my goodness.
ourselves. And even with skin, people saying you're pretty for a dark skinned girl, or you're pretty for a brown skinned girl.
Right.
That message that you're giving that person, you're like giving them a compliment but not a compliment.
Exactly. You
At the
know,
time, it's like, what do you mean by that?
or
Instead of,
even with weight, you notice how they do that? Like you said, even with, like you said, the skin color, and even with weight, oh, for a smaller person,
yeah,
super skinny person, you look nice, or for a big person, you look cute. And it's like, well,
right, cute big
I
girl,
don't know how to take that.
the BBW and all of those,
Yeah.
yeah, labels that we put on people and their weight, whereas really we're all just striving to be a healthy version of ourselves. And I know
Yes.
that a big thing that's been popular right now is the beauty standard of having a big butt, and a small waist, and big.
Yep.
And realistically, most women do not look like that.
No,
Um,
that's not nine
but
times out of 10.
it's
You're right.
the praise of aspects of the Black culture and things that Black people were more known for being kind of taken and marketed, or people taking aspects of the culture and making
Yep.
it something that is a marketing tool or something that they
They
can
sure
make
have.
money off of. um,
Mm-hmm.
so we've had that a lot in our lives,
Yes.
stolen aspects of our culture that become mainstream because they know that they can make some profit from it.
The lips, the
Yeah,
bottom.
lips.
Yes.
All of those things are in now.
Right.
You can see people walking around with the really plump lips. They can get plastic surgery for that, or for other body parts, but it still doesn't put an emphasis on just women being healthy. uh,
Yes. Just being
and
healthy.
I think
Yes.
sometimes it puts pressure on Black women because we're not all going to look the same. We're not going to all have the same body shapes. And just
Right.
because, we all don't have that one body shape doesn't mean that you're not beautiful.
Right.
And so, there could be young girls coming up that feel like they're not enough because they don't have a big butt, or they're not going to attract a guy because they don't have, a big butt. And then,
Mm-hmm.
plays on your self-esteem and your
Yep.
way that you think about yourself, and then the way that you think about, other women as well.
That is so true. Like you said, the way you think about yourself, and then we take it and project it onto other women. Do this and that with your hair, or do this and put this on your skin. And it's like, no, and then you start thinking, I was okay before, you rewind in your head. I was okay before I had that conversation with her. Like, now, why am I thinking I'm not enough? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But it
Yeah.
happens, and we influence each other. And so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, yeah, if more people were having that conversation of not, saying those things and say more positive things to each other, then imagine what that could do, how much of an influence that could be, you
Oh,
know?
for sure. For sure. Like you said, more positive things. Yes. Yes. Now, how do you think that the non-Black churches have enabled white?
When you have, pastors or people come in and say, yeah, I'll go to a Black church, but we're all brothers and sisters in Christ,
Mm-hmm.
whereas it takes away some of that division, but it's very divided, is what I've noticed. And
Mm-hmm.
I think some churches do play a part in that. The evangelists with the white
Mm-hmm.
supremacy,
Mm-hmm.
um, and people aligning themselves with certain presidential candidates,
Mm-hmm.
um, or just even sometimes, like I know on social media they put like the little, I guess you call them the church signs. You know how some
Yes.
churches have the things
Yep.
outside of their church, and some people writing some really horrible things, and you're like, how can you right, and put that in front of a church when it's clearly a racist statement or something that's very hateful
Mm-hmm.
towards people, and it just adds on to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yep.
think you definitely have more people, especially with since President Obama
Mm-hmm.
left office, a lot more people, kind of aligning themselves with that white supremacy message, or with Donald
Yes.
Trump, and
Mm-hmm.
saying that they're Christians, and
Mm-hmm.
they believe in the Bible, they believe in God and stuff, and then you're going along with messages that are very hateful towards people. So it's
Right.
confusing, and it doesn't make sense.
No, it
Like
doesn't.
contradictory.
Right.
It confuses me that people
Yeah.
say one thing, and then I think also what we were talking about the last episode of people being vocal and saying what they really felt,
Yes.
and being surprised at some of the things that you heard from fellow Christians, or
Yes.
sometimes I'm in different groups and hearing different people say different things, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, that's
Right.
it's surprising because
It's
you kind
very
of think that,
surprising. I mean, you just like, and then you it's like you're in conversation with them, and I can remember like some of the conversations I was in, and then you hear the response, and then you're thinking like, wait a second, and I mean, you feel like the knife is like so in you, and you're just like, wow, I didn't, and in your mind, I saying it out loud, but it's like, wow, I didn't know he or she felt like this, and then you just like, wow, that really hurt, and then, to hear it is one thing, but then to like to feel the effects of racism in your soul, I mean, like literally in the depths of my soul, I was just like, you know,
yeah,
it's really something. Yeah. And
yeah,
like you said, the damage, you think that, oh, it's fine when people, say words to you, like you said, you think that you're okay and it's not going to bother you, just like the same we talked about, whether it's the words or what you see on TV. No, it's fine, I'm fine. But that stuff, it does damage, you
yeah.
know. Mm-hmm.
And then I think it's been driving, because of during the slavery time, there was the justification of, well, the Bible says this, it supports what
Yes.
we're doing. And so, people take the Bible and put it behind their own agenda, or things
Yes.
that they're not doing, or things that they are doing.
Mm-hmm.
People,
Yep. Use the
well, the Bible
Bible.
supports, it takes a little part. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that sometimes, kind of, it's been coming up a lot in conversation in terms of Black people, of saying, that this is something that was used against us. Why are we engaging in it? Why are
Mm-hmm.
we going to church? Why are we,
Mm-hmm.
taking on Christianity when it was something that, was used to
Mm-hmm.
support what they were doing to us? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that sometimes causes Black people to step away from the church, and starting to step away from Christianity and to step into some other things, because they're looking at that aspect of it, of, this was something that was forced upon us or used against us.
Mm-hmm.
Why should we engage in it now?
Yep. I've heard that too. A lot of them stepping away because of back in slavery time, how they used it. And then on the other side of that, it's like a lot of the people that I've seen stepped away from Christianity, just from their faith in God,
Hmm.
they've gotten caught up in some really deep stuff, like cultish type
Yeah,
of things. And that saddens me, because it's like, I feel like the devil will use anything
right.
to, our vulnerability moments and our pain and hurt, to
Mhm.
take us way to another level. Like we thought like we were doing a good thing by leaving something, but
Right.
then it's like, I'm going to take you to something else. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I've seen it. There's not been one case of that I have seen myself, at least from the few that I've seen, with the exception, I take it back. There's one situation, but other than that, uh, I haven't seen any others other than that, with the other people where
Mhm.
they have actually come out in a better situation. I've seen them get caught up in like cultish, you know what I'm saying, type of things. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Yeah, with kind of, people coming up with different philosophies of
Mm-hmm.
what we should be doing in terms of of religion, and
Mm-hmm.
that's been a conversation that I've been more so hearing more recently,
Yeah.
more so lately. And so, I do agree that it kind of goes into the territory of kind of being like a cult, or
Mm-hmm.
following someone else's philosophy. I can understand if you maybe want to step away from the faith and you want to ask questions, and
Right.
nothing wrong with that. We all have
No.
our path of how we got to where we are in our faith. um,
Exactly.
but when it does start to get into these other things, I agree with you. I think it saddens me, and I've seen kind of that shift. And it just has me wondering, where things are going to be going in the next couple of years, because
Mm-hmm.
your faith and what you believe with other people. And so kind of when you get into these conversations and then people say, well, that's not our original religion, and kind of it going back to that's white man's religion.
Mm-hmm.
um it makes it hard
It
for some
does
people
make it hard. Right.
on
Right.
your side, because
Mm-hmm.
they're just seeing it from their perspective of, you shouldn't be doing this anymore.
Right.
You should
Right.
have abandoned that. And I understand some people feel like it's strengthening us as a Black community, and it's going to bring us
Mm-hmm.
closer to our roots and our ancestors and what original um, religion we were dealing with. But Christianity is in Africa as
Right. It
well.
is.
Um,
Yes, it is.
and I know from talking to people, and there's actually Nigerian churches or different churches that are just specifically for different African communities. And so you know it's really hard to navigate those conversations with people, because then they say, well, no, that's because it was introduced to them. And so
Right.
in some ways Christianity is starting to be seen as a negative thing for African Americans, and I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that's necessarily the answer to us becoming closer in the strengths that he gives you. But he knows what he's doing. He knows what's the strong suit for you. He knows what you're going to be good at. And so
Right.
he guided me in that direction. But as a therapist and as a coach, I really had to get myself in a mindset of, what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
you have these skills,
Right.
you can help people. Because
Right.
if you don't believe something, how can anyone else believe it?
That is true.
And how can you tell other people to have this self-worth, and you're not even practicing what you preach? That was one of the things when I was going into decided I was going to go into like doing therapy, that
Mm-hmm.
that advice. And she said, just practice what you preach. And that always stuck with me because
Yes.
it's really true. It's really
Mm-hmm.
harder to tell someone and explain to them how to do it, and to expect them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not even doing it yourself, because they're gonna
There
look at
you
you.
go.
Well, you ain't got the you ain't
There
got it
you go.
together, so why should I do it?
Right.
You got to be the example. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things during the pandemic that I did was I started to kind of learn about living like a purpose-filled life, or a purposeful
Yes.
life. And I
Mm-hmm.
started looking at different people that talked about it and things like
Right.
that. It really changed my perspective on things, um,
Mm-hmm.
myself, because a lot of what it talks about is being able to see your identity through Christ and who
Yes.
He made you to be,
Amen.
interactions, and then you kind of
Mm-hmm.
yourself and say, yeah, no, I'm not where I thought I was. And so that really helped me to be able to gain like a different image of myself. And then going into exploring that self-love and self-worth, but like you said, exploring it from Him and
Mm-hmm.
connecting it to my faith. But I think a lot of times people shy away, Christians shy away from self-love and those kind of concepts, because um, the worldly view of it is
Right.
just
The worldly view of it. Right.
you
Right.
know, just kind of love yourself, put yourself first, and most people think of it in that context. So
Right.
what I started to do was to make the spiritual connection of, okay, well, how does self-love connect to who I am in God and my faith,
Right.
Christian beliefs? And once I started to make those connections, it made it a lot stronger, and it made a lot more sense.
It
It
sure does.
made it
Yes.
click for me, and it did a lot of good things for my mental state.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
and so since then, I've started a Facebook group, and I did a training on self-worth. I did a training on self-love and self-confidence, but I did it from a spiritual perspective of saying,
Yes.
this is the worldly view of it, and let's talk about it in the context of what would be appropriate for us as Christian women.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really, really good way to translate that to people of what I've learned and taken
Mm-hmm.
and sharing it with other people. So that's really helped me, and I want to help other women in that aspect of having that I am enough. And these
Yes.
are the reasons why I am enough. And
Yes.
making those connections to the spiritual of what you already know
Yes.
about
Yes.
God and what you know about what he's done. And then
Amen.
once you start to do that and you make that connection of I'm enough because of these reasons and not more so the worldly ones, I think it takes more root
Oh,
and
yes.
becomes a lot deeper. And it also helps your relationship with God.
It sure does, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And one thing it helped me to do was to start to face some of my fears and some of my anxieties.
Mm.
Instead of telling myself, I can't do that, God, and saying, yeah, I can. Or, all right, I'm available. Don't
Mm-hmm.
know how this is going to work. This is taking me out of my comfort zone.
Right.
But if this is what you want me to do, so
Mm-hmm.
just making yourself more available for him, uh,
Right.
that was a big thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so just from making myself available, he led, okay, I want you here. And
Mm-hmm.
these situations that he put me in were definitely out of my comfort zone. Even just like with me doing the live trainings and talking to people.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been more connected during the pandemic to other people than at
Mm-hmm.
any other point in my life, which is ironic because you would expect the opposite.
Yep.
And with
To come out of your comfort zone, right?
it puts me out of my comfort zone with starting to
Mm-hmm.
in developing a coaching program, and so the more I was out of my comfort zone, but the more I could see, hey, I can do this, or
Mm-hmm.
giving me the skills and the strengths to do this. You
Yes.
and so it has allowed me to see what I can do beyond
Mm-hmm.
what I originally thought,
Right.
and then I can look and say, hey, I'm doing this.
Right. Right. I've stepped outside of my box, right?
Right, right. I'm like, one of the things I dealt with was driving anxiety, and I completely would not drive for years, or it
Mm-hmm.
would always be like a big emotional response. So at some point, I just started to avoid it, right?
Okay.
Um, but actually, with the pandemic, I faced that fear, and I'm actually driving now. So
Okay.
it's something that I can just tangibly see of, like a year ago, you couldn't even get me in the driver's seat to drive
Mm-hmm.
a car. But, you know, now I'm driving on a regular, or I've driven in situations that I never thought that I would ever drive in. And even if there is some anxiety, it's not to the point of what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm handling those situations better than what I thought. But I couldn't see that a year ago.
Oh, I understand. Trust me. I
Yeah.
understand. For 30 years, I did not drive. I got my license and then at 16, and then I didn't drive for 30 years. And then my young adult son, he helped me to relearn how to drive. 2 months after I started driving, I got hit.
Oh,
And
oh,
yeah, I got hit in the back really bad 2 months after. And praise God, I didn't have any lasting
yeah.
physical effects, but the emotional trauma, oh yeah, yeah, it was real. The emotional and mental effects of that trauma was real. And so then almost 3 weeks ago, another accident I was in. And
Oh,
yeah,
gosh.
and it was in August. And the first one that I had was in August. So that
Oh,
didn't help. So then it was like more trauma added on.
right.
So yeah, but I understand 100% what you mean about the driving anxiety, because I didn't drive for 30 years. But after this accident that happened almost 3 weeks ago, some of that anxiety came back,
Right.
and yeah, and
Absolutely.
you know,
No, for sure, because it's all connected. you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, sometimes we don't give that attention that we need to the spiritual health, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to give that what that needs so that you can have that spiritual growth and that maturity. And we all
Mm-hmm.
go through periods of time where we go through the motions.
That is true. Right, right. We all have that.
I've
Right,
been there.
right.
And I know other people have talked about feeling guilty because maybe they are in that space or they're not
Mm-hmm.
doing, X, Y, and Z. And so we go through different stages and seasons, but it's being able to recognize and being able to know how to deal with those moments. Because I think stuff like that isn't talked about either. Everybody wants to be, that
Mm-hmm.
100%. I'm good
Oh
all the
yeah.
Christian, I'm
Yeah, they
always doing what
do.
I'm supposed to be doing. And
Yeah.
no,
No.
all have been there. And so, what's the harm in someone saying, hey, I went through that, or, hey, that bothered me when, I experienced that,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to help each other through it and to give that feedback and that advice back rather than kind of just holding it in and saying, well, that was my experience. I'm not going to share that with
Right.
you just because maybe it wasn't, something that, people expect of you.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. So I've got one last question and then we'll do the real fast, fun questions. And my last question for you is a Black woman comes up to you and she says, I want my power and identity back. And then you say,
So I would tell her, you want your power and identity back. I would help her kind of define what does healing mean for her,
okay.
and what
Mhm.
what do you feel like are the things that you need to do to get your power and identity back? What's the challenge? What's holding you back from doing those things?
Mhm.
And from there, being able to make those connections of, because you can't do something if you don't know how you want to do it, or or what's causing you from not doing it. You
That
have
is true.
insight as just on a lower level, and it's good if someone has the concept that this is what I want in the long run, because that helps you to be able to get to that insight, and then you just keep building upon the insights. But you know I can say for me, living that purpose filled life really
Mhm.
up to me, and living my life more so from that approach. And so, that's what I do, is to try to help other women to do the same thing,
Mhm.
so that they can have more of that fulfillment, or they can, be more available for God, or do some of the things that maybe they wanted to do or they felt like He was calling them to do, but
Mhm.
you're afraid maybe you want to do a little bit more with this pandemic and everything that's going on in the world. Uh,
Mhm.
People are in need. Um, and so being able to just, take the steps to live a satisfying life.
Yes. Amen. Amen. So now I've got the fun, super quick question. The songs on your playlist that you feel like you can't live without.
That was such a hard question.
Oh, really?
I'm a big music fan, and I feel like everything
Mhm.
in general, if I didn't have it, I don't know.
Okay, so you got quite a few songs.
I'm a big Stevie Wonder fan.
Oh, I love Stevie Wonder too. Oh man.
In there, I'm a big Mary Mary fan.
Okay.
Give me inspiration and motivation. So
Mm-hmm.
the music would probably be in there. It's such a hard question just to pick five. So.
You know what? And even let's just say this. You don't even have to pick 5 songs, even though that's the question. You can say the different artists that you like too.
Yeah, I like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of different music. So I like a lot of R&B. I also listen to a lot of Motown music. So
Me
the
too.
my favorite song from them is "I Wish It Would Rain."
Oh, yes. Oh, how I wish that it would
Yeah,
rain.
it's a
Yes.
great song. So that would probably be one song that I probably can live with,
Mm-hmm.
my favorite songs. I listen a lot to a lot of Motown. Listen to a lot of gospel.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So just a lot of different genres, but those are like the the most. That's probably on my playlist and the
Mm-hmm.
most that I listen to.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so 3 things you do to nourish your soul.
Yeah. So the things that I do currently to nourish my soul, one of the big things that I try to do is to have conversation with God throughout the day.
Okay.
Um, because in the past I used to think about prayer just very narrowly as, okay, I got 15, 20 minutes here,
Mm-hmm.
here, this is my prayer time. And,
Yeah.
but that, there's definitely a time and place for that. And, you should have some time set aside. But I noticed that the more I kind of had conversations with him throughout the day, the more I did talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about a relationship, if you want to strengthen a relationship with someone, you're going to talk to them, right?
You sure are. That's true. That's it. You're right.
For them, you're not going to, avoid them, or you're not just going to, hit them up maybe one time. You're going to have constant conversation with them to get to know more. So that has been really helpful for me in terms of nourishing my soul, is having kind of constant conversation. Like I said, even just maybe a minute of, hey Lord, I need your help, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid right now, I need you to order my steps. It doesn't have to be anything long.
Mm-hmm.
We're so programmed to having like that separation of, oh, this is just my time for prayer, rather than prayer can be at any point during your day. um,
Mm.
One change that has been really helpful with nourishing my soul. I would also say that listening to music is soothing and
Mm-hmm.
nourishes the soul. It gives it a different way to express yourself. And like I said, I'm a big music fan, so
Mm-hmm. Me too.
interest. So it helps me to make that connection. And sometimes when I don't have the words to say,
Mm-hmm.
give me, that inspiration or encouragement, and to help me out. And then another thing that I have been just trying to do more of is that self-care,
Yeah.
taking the time out, you know,
Mm-hmm.
say no, to say no, to set boundaries, and also being able to know of, okay, well, how do I still help people, but still take care of myself? So
Mm-hmm.
all or nothing type of thing. Because I think a lot of
Right.
times people think of self care, they think of it as an all or nothing aspect.
True. Yep.
I can only care for myself, or I can just care for other people. And it's like,
Right.
it doesn't have to be to the extremes. And so I've been
Right.
trying. I was like, hey, Ashley, it does not have to be too extremes.
Mm-hmm.
Have this, couple of moments
Mm-hmm.
and do some actual self-care. So that's something that I've been working on. uh,
Amen.
Having more of that, and it does help, if you
Mm-hmm.
be
Oh,
able,
I agree.
your emotional health and your mental health is in a certain state, it does help your spiritual health. So
It does, doesn't it? Yep.
making those connections again rather than separating
Mm-hmm. So important. Okay, so I got 2 last questions for you. Do you have a favorite kitchen gadget?
them. I like to bake things.
You do.
Because you can prepare it, you can get it the way you want it to, and then you can just
Mm-hmm.
stick it in the oven, and then come back after a certain period of
There
time.
you go. Yep.
I like cooking, but I don't like standing over having to watch something all the time. So if I can
Okay.
in the oven, do what I gotta do and then come back to it. Uh,
Yes.
but that makes it a much more pleasurable.
I see what you're saying. It's like put it in there and be done with it, huh?
Yeah, I know sometimes women like, well, if cooking's not your interest, or if it's something that you're not really like, you know, excited about, that
Mm-hmm.
it's a bad thing, because that's what women do, right? They cook,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the expectations, especially when you're married.
True.
I got married in May, so we're in a time,
Oh, okay.
that women cook. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, even if it's not something that is your interest or something that you're not excited about, ladies, there's ways to do it in a way where, it will not be like a massive chore for you. It won't be like, oh man, I gotta get up and cook.
Mm-hmm.
Just be creative with it, and that's okay. Find what works for you, and
Yeah.
because I do think that can be overwhelming of like that expectation, and
Mm-hmm.
especially if you haven't been cooking for someone,
Right.
it's like, the feminist movement of, not going to be in the kitchen
Mm-hmm.
cooking all the
Yep.
time, but being able to have a way where you can prepare a meal and be creative, and not have to, go into the traditional view of what a woman in the kitchen is like,
Mm-hmm.
or what that should look like. You got to
Right.
good statements out
Mm-hmm.
what works for you.
That is true. Like they say, you do you, boo.
What works for you.
Oh my goodness. So my last question is, what is something that people get wrong about you?
What is something that people get wrong about me? I think that sometimes, people think, if I tend to be a quiet person. I talked about being an introvert,
Mm-hmm.
and especially when I was a kid, I was more quiet. But I think people just didn't think that, I had something to say, or, you know, um, I just think it got misunderstood in a lot of ways.
Mm.
Just because someone is quiet doesn't mean that they're not sociable. Doesn't mean that they, don't want to connect to people. It means
Mm-hmm.
they don't have anything to say. And so, just being able to embrace myself as an introvert, talk about enoughness,
Right, right.
an aspect of enoughness that I had to come to terms with, that it's okay that I'm not an extrovert,
Mm-hmm.
I'm an introvert, and you know, it doesn't mean the stereotypes of what people think of when they think of a shy or quiet person.
Right.
And being able to embrace that side of me and say,
Mm-hmm.
I am on the little quieter side, but that
Right.
it was seen as kind of a bad thing when
Mm-hmm.
I was a kid, because people said I was too quiet. Um,
Mm.
and so, it becomes confusing, because then, that gives you that notion of, this is bad. This is something
Right.
bad.
Right. If I'm quieter, right,
Yeah,
it's something bad. Yep.
most of the kids that are, yeah, related.
Mm-hmm.
And why should someone be bothered by the fact that you're quiet? You would think someone wouldn't be bothered by a
That's true.
child, because then, I wasn't getting in trouble or anything, but it was kind of seen as a negative thing. So I had to learn how to change that, reverse it, and look at it from a different way.
Yes, I got you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time this morning.